Hello there, everyone. I want to give a big shout out to everybody watching this video, including the people who saw the name of the video and are probably just here to give it 1 star and leave some choice comments down there in the comment box. Well, you know where it is and you can go to town. Also want to say for people who are familiar with my earlier videos that this is kind of a different sort of video. It's not going to be as not going to be quoting a lot of factual information. This is more just kind of a philosophical argument. What I wanted to do, since there's been a lot of talk about it, is talk a little bit about shame and patriotism, because it's been in the news a lot. You know, we have people saying that Obama doesn't put his hand over his heart during the Pledge of Allegiance. There's been a lot of talk about mostly Chinese-made flag lapel pins. And, of course, we have Michelle Obama's comment, which has been very much in the news lately. When we look at all these things, we see that, part of this whole political season is definitely going to be about issues of patriotism. And if it's going to be about that, and it's going to be about Michelle Obama's comment about shame, I think we need to do an exploration of the relationship between shame and other concepts and see how it actually factors into our political discourse. We'll do this by first looking at the relationship between shame and love. Secondly, we'll look at the relationship between shame and progress. We'll examine shame as a normal response to situations. And finally, we'll kind of explore maybe how we should be talking about shame when we're talking about, how we should use shame in our political discourse. Well, first, in terms of the relationship between shame and love, I think I can offer you a fairly simple example that shows you that shame and love are very closely related. Let's take the example of you see somebody who's falling down drunk. They're falling all over themselves, they're throwing up, they're making a complete idiot out of themselves. If you don't know this person and you don't feel any kind of connection with them, then you're not ashamed of them. I mean, you think they're vile, you think they're disgusting, maybe you don't approve of what they're doing or how they're acting or whatever. But one thing I would say that you generally don't feel is shame. Now, if you take the exact same scenario and instead of some random stranger, it's your father, well, now, yeah, you are feeling some shame. And that is, I think, completely tied to the fact that you love your father. So you love your father and you're upset that he is disappointing you and your expectations of him, and you want him to act better and he's not. So you feel ashamed. So I think just by this example you can see that love is completely tied to feelings of shame. And the stronger the feelings of shame you have, the more it seems that you had to have loved it before. Much in the same way that, people argue accurately that the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. But I would say, secondly, there's a distinct relationship between shame and progress. If we look at, the great social movements of the United States, things like, the abolitionist movement, later addressing a lot of the same issue, the civil rights movement, child labor laws. All of these things started out with, advocates for change, making people ashamed of the way, things are. I mean, if you look at, if you've ever read Uncle Tom's Cabin, for example, it's definitely the whole purpose of that book to make people ashamed of our treatment of slaves in the South. So I think that shame is a very important thing. This kind of rolls into my next point, which is that shame is just an emotion, and it's a normal reaction to, a situation. So I guess I don't understand why people vilify other people for saying that they feel ashamed of any particular thing. I mean, I think whether or not shame is legitimate or not depends on whether or not the cause of the shame is legitimate or not. Because I think all shame is rooted in something. I mean, it's just an emotion. I don't think it kind of springs unbidden to your head or to your heart. You don't suddenly start feeling shame for no reason whatsoever. There's always a reason why you're feeling shame. So rather than kind of getting, hung up on this very superficial level where we say, shame is not permitted in the debate whatsoever, what we need to do is bring shame out and say, look, shame is a normal, useful reaction. For my own sake, I feel significant shame about things that this country is doing. Like, take, for example, torture. I feel completely ashamed that our nation tortures. I think it's wrong. In fact, I think it's completely and almost unutterably wrong. And without the language of shame at my disposal to express that, I don't even know that I could transmit how wrong I think this is, because I need that language. I need that ability to, say this in a way that's as strong as the way that I feel. And honestly, I feel the same way about our illegal war in Iraq. I think, when you go, you have false reasons for going to war with a country, and then, despite this being discovered, you stay and you occupy that country, and you kill over 1 million of their people, and you say that you're going to reconstruct their country, and you don't do it. I mean, I think these things are all shameful. I honestly don't know what else to call them. Now, we can have, an argument about, the facts of this situation. Because, like I said, my feelings of shame are grounded in specific things that I've read, and, we can have a discussion. You can prove to me that the things that I've read are wrong, or that they're a misrepresentation of the reality on the ground in Iraq, or the reality, of, undergoing torture for a torture victim. But attacking it on the superficial level of like, why are you ashamed, doesn't make any sense, I think. I think you need to go beyond that and say, well, what is your reason for being ashamed? So, in terms of concluding, I think that we need to recognize that if a person is ashamed, if they say that they're ashamed, we need to know that that's based on them having loved something or have been proud of something and then being disappointed in it. So rather than focusing in just on the aspect of shame, what we should do is say, well, what are you ashamed of? And what do you propose to do about it? And you see how that instantly gets us away from this kind of useless discussion of emotion and refocuses us on the task at hand. I mean, is the thing that you're ashamed of something that we can do something about? And if so, what do you propose? And now we can talk about, well, either what they're ashamed of and whether or not it's a valid thing to be ashamed of, whether it's a real serious problem that merits shame, and we can also talk about their solution, whether or not that's actually, if we can agree that it's something worthy of shame, that, is the correction that they've proposed actually going to work? So I guess, in conclusion, and maybe I should have put this at the beginning, I just wanted to say that I love this country. And I want to be proud of it again. But that has to be grounded in something real, something substantive. And it has to be grounded in change. I'm never going to stop loving this country. But in my opinion, based on the things that I've seen and read, I think my country is drunk. I think it's drunk with power, and it's acting in a revolting manner. And I can say that, and it's completely consistent. So, thanks for listening to this argument. I'm looking forward to a very spirited debate on this, and thanks for tuning in.